Thank you. Hello and welcome to the regular business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, January 16th. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting. We have an amended agenda before us. Can I have someone move adoption of the amended agenda, please? Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We don't have any delegations or petitions or proclamation requests for this meeting. So on to next, consideration of unscheduled public attendance. This is where if anyone has a matter that they would like to, that they feel is too urgent to wait till the next regular business meeting, this would be the opportunity to bring that matter forward. Seeing none, we'll move on to our first item, which is our public hearing. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Daly to, oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor French.
Mayor, I'm declaring conflict of interest on this matter. One of the people connected to the ownership of the property we're about to discuss made a financial contribution to my election campaign, and to avoid the perception of conflict of interest, I'll remove myself from this public hearing.
Thank you very much, Councillor French. We'll give Councillor French some time to clear, and we'll reach out when following the public hearing. So you can rejoin us for the rest of the meeting. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Daly, planner with Community Development. I'm here tonight to present a rezoning application at 40279 Government Road for a public hearing. At the November 21st, 2023 regular council meeting, Council gave Bylaw 3004 first and second reading and scheduled a public hearing for this evening. The subject property is a vacant lot located at 40279 Government Road. It was formerly developed with a single unit dwelling that was destroyed by fire. The property is unique in that it is a hooked parcel with a 1.49 hectare lot on the west side of the CN rail line and a 0.58 hectare parcel fronting Government Road on the east side. The parcel on the west side of the rail line is zoned Rural Residential 2 and is in the Agricultural Land Reserve. Cowton Reserve is north of the subject property. Adjacent properties to the south are zoned RS2 and developed with duplexes. Mamquem Elementary School is across Government Road to the east. This rezoning application seeks to rezone the parcel on the east side of the CN rail line fronting Government Road from RS2 to RM2 to facilitate the development of 26 townhomes. No development or changes to the existing zoning are proposed for the parcel west of the rail line. The applicant is proposing to dedicate this parcel to the district. The property is located in a conditional densification area, and the applicant has completed flood modeling to confirm that the proposed development footprint and grading plan will not have an adverse impact on flood conveyance. There are two environmentally sensitive areas located on the portion of the property that is subject to the rezoning. As such, they trigger the requirements for Development Permit Area 1 for protection of the environment. The applicant has prepared a report establishing setbacks from these areas that meet the DPA 1 guidelines. A development permit for protection of environment will be processed should this application move forward to adoption. The applicant is proposing to maintain a number of existing mature trees on site. The application meets the requirements of the RM2 zone. The proposed lot coverage is 38%, building height is 9.91 meters, and the gross floor area of all the buildings is 3,111 square meters, or a floor area ratio of 0.55. These metrics are based on the lot area of the parcel to the east of the rail line where the development is proposed. 21 units will have 3 bedrooms and 5 will have 2 bedrooms plus a den. Units range in size from 111 square meters to 140 square meters. The development is accessed off Government Road. None of the units provide side-by-side parking within a garage. The remaining units provide 1 stall within a garage and a second surface parking stall in front of the garage. 7 visitor parking stalls are provided for a total of 59 parking stalls, which meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw. A shared waste room is provided as required. 1,403 square meters of common open space is provided, including a covered communal amenity space, toddler play area, and adventure play area. 1,080 square meters of private open space total is provided in the form of ground level yard and patio space for each unit. This application triggers the previous community amenity contribution policy. The applicant has proposed the following offer, which meets the policy for a multifamily, residential, or mixed-use rezoning application that proposes less than 50 dwelling units. The offer includes $502,380 cash in lieu of critical amenities, and for the active transportation and parks contribution, subdivision and dedication of the 1.5 hectare parcel on the west side of the CN rail line to the district. In addition to those CAC contributions, the applicants are also proposing to enter into a no gas covenant so that all units will be powered by electricity, including hot water tanks, and that no natural gas connections will be provided or permitted on the property. To inform the community per policy, the project was posted to the district's development showcase and a development sign has been posted at the site. Public hearing notification was advertised in the January 4th and 11 editions of the Squamish Chief. Public hearing notices were delivered to adjacent properties within 100 meters. No comments or requests for public information meetings have been received to date. So staff recommend that following the public hearing, Bylaw 3004 be given third reading, subject to the conditions noted on the slide, which are entering into a land development agreement to secure the cash in lieu of amenities, the commitment to subdivide and dedicate the 1.5 hectare parcel, and entering into a no gas covenant. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions at this time.
Thank you for the presentation. Council, before we proceed to public comment, do you have any questions about anything we've heard or anything that wasn't included in the materials? Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I've forgotten this detail, but is the parcel on the west side of the tracks within the agricultural land reserve?
Through the mayor, that's correct. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Councillor Stoner?
Thank you. Through the chair, the staff report for public hearing this evening says that there was a referral to Squamish Nation, but I'm just curious if we've heard anything back.
Through the mayor, yes, staff liaised with the referral process with the Squamish Nation. They outlined their concerns, and the majority of them, they would like to be kept in the loop on the remaining development approvals should this move past rezoning. They would like further information regarding stormwater management and other things like that once those plans are prepared.
So all the issues that were raised were things that we typically deal with at DP, is that correct?
That's correct. They were comfortable with the application moving forward and would just like further referrals should it continue through the development process.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw?
You made mention of environmental sensitivities on the property, and I was just wondering if you could expand upon that.
There are, let me pull up a site plan here quickly. Sorry. My apologies for the delay. So there are two environmentally sensitive areas located on the parcel that is subject to the development. If you can see my cursor here, they generally follow this sort of hatched area. The applicants have provided a report prepared by a qualified environmental professional that recommends setbacks from these areas that is consistent with our Development Permit Area 1 guidelines and the provincial wrapper requirements. So the environmental department has accepted this proposal as it meets the guideline, both the districts and the provincial guidelines.
Sorry, but what specifically is the sensitivity?
They are watercourses that connect to fish-bearing watercourses.
Thanks.
Councillor Pettingill?
I'm just wondering if staff can refresh my recollection. I believe we asked about access to the west parcel and that practically speaking, it would be landlocked, and that was considered in staff's assessment of the value of that parcel. Is that correct, or am I making things up?
Through the chair, that is correct. Another note on the western parcel is that a lot of that area is environmentally sensitive. So staff feel that its use would be best to be preserved in its existing state.
Okay. I don't see any other questions at this time, so we'll proceed to the public portion of this. Now, I have a bit of a script to read, so bear with me as we go through this. So, the public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act requirements to allow the public to present and to provide submissions to council respecting the proposed bylaw. This is District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200/2011 amendment for 40279 Government Road, number 3004/2023. Everyone present will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or provide a written submission. We want to ensure that no one is discouraged or prevented from making their views known, whether speaking in favor or against the proposed zoning amendment. Please ensure that your remarks are relevant to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Please note that the public hearing is not an opportunity for members of the public to have their questions answered by staff or council. Any questions or points of clarification can be directed to staff by contacting the planning department. Members of council may ask clarifying questions following presentations. Council is here to listen and will not debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with the public or each other during the public hearing. Please note that this public hearing is being recorded and web streamed live, and the recording will be posted on District of Squamish's website. Media are often present at public hearings, and the public should feel free to advise the media if they don't want their picture taken. Up to and as part of this public hearing, the public has had opportunity to make submissions to council. If any submissions were received, they are available for review and comment and have been included as part of staff's report. Any submissions received after the agenda was published have been added to the electronic agenda and to the electronic public hearing package available on the district website. Any submissions made during the hearing can be reviewed during the hearing by viewing that electronic agenda. Submissions will be uploaded by staff as they're received. We're trying to make this hearing a safe space for everyone to voice their opinion without interference from others. Therefore, I ask that members of the public maintain order and quiet during the hearing. Please do not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of council or any other person addressing council. We've received a presentation from the planning department already, and at this point, I'll now ask the applicant or their representative to comment on the proposed zoning, after which everyone else will be given opportunity to speak or make the submission. I'll call for any interested parties to speak following and I'll have the instructions following the presentation from the proponent, if there is one. Is there someone? Oh, perfect. Hello and welcome. The mic will just turn on for you. You're good there. Can you start by with your full name and which neighborhood you're from, and you'll have 5 minutes to address council.
My name is Gary Dollywall. I'm from Valleycliff. I'm the representative of the ownership group. I just want to thank mayor and council for their time, and as well as staff for their time with our application. We don't have anything to add at this time, but we're here to answer any questions or provide clarification. Our architect, Stefan Leroy, will also be joining by video for any technical questions.
Thank you. Okay. So now I will call for any interested parties to speak. For all speakers, please approach the podium and start your remarks by clearly stating your name and neighborhood. Please note the speakers will be given up to 5 minutes to address council in order that everyone has opportunity to speak to council. Details to participate via telephone or WebEx are displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. Instructions are also included on the district's website. To get on the speakers list, if you are on the telephone, please raise your hand by dialing *3 or via WebEx on computer or cell phone by opening the participant panel and clicking on the hand icon. Please note there will be a moderator who will communicate with speakers. When it's your turn to speak, you'll receive a voice prompt via telephone or a dialog box via WebEx. Please remember to put your hand down after you finish speaking. which is *3 on the telephone, or clicking on the hand icon via WebEx. Lots of instructions there. Do we have anyone in attendance that would like to make a submission to this public hearing? I'll look to our moderator to see if there's anyone online to make a submission.
No, Mayor, there's nobody online except for the applicant's representative.
Okay, thank you. I will ask again if there's anyone that wishes to speak on this matter before I go into the closing statement, which is shorter than the opening statement, but is still quite procedural. Okay, if there are no further speakers, I would ask council if there are any further information that the planning department might provide at this time. Seeing no hands, now that I've heard from everyone on the speakers list, it is a requirement that I ask 3 times if there's anyone else who wishes to speak before we can close the public hearing. For the first time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? For the second time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? And for a third and final time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? Seeing none, please note that council members are not permitted to receive any further submissions or hear either a proponent or opponent to the application once the public hearing has been concluded. This means we can't speak to you out in the community or receive emails or phone calls on any of these or on any bylaw we've considered until a decision on the bylaws has been made. Any and all communication from this point must be channeled to staff. As there are no further speakers, I declare the hearing closed. Thank you very much for your submissions. Okay. Council, I think it would be, I'd like to move that we suspend the order of the agenda so we can deal with item 9A, which is consideration of third reading at this time. So then we can have Councillor French rejoin if appropriate. Seconded by Councillor Hamilton. So all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So now we're on to consideration of third reading. We just had the presentation. Is there any addition? There's nothing else there's no additional presentation. So we have the recommendation before us for third reading on this. Would someone like to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Anderson? Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, we've discussed this proposal in the past and reviewed various elements of it, and I think that it responds to where we're at in our objectives with respect to housing and features of this development. I wish, however, to address in particular the land that is to be dedicated to the district on the west side of the CN tracks that's in the Agricultural Land Reserve. 2 comments. There is provision, and these are kind of policy considerations, not least for the district in future in similar circumstances which may come up. But there's provision in provincial legislation for lands that are in the agricultural land reserves that would not be cultivated for environmental reasons, such as, for example, in the Fraser Valley riparian areas that farms have. To have no tax, so they will be exempt from property tax. I believe the legislation refers to these properties, these situations as waste, so the property tax is not applied. It's something to keep in mind. We may have a variety of circumstances come forward like this in Squamish Valley. The second point I would make is that the location is unique, immediately in proximity to Indian Reserve number 17, Cowtain. There has been past agricultural use of this area, like within the next door in Cowtain Reserve. It's well documented. Livestock, growing potatoes, and orchards. In fact, the inventories goes back quite some years, but it's quite impressive, the agricultural activity on the Cowtain Reserve. So This is, we have an objective in our Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan to encourage collaboration and participation on the part of the Squamish Nation community. And given the immediate proximity, it's something that may perhaps come up and might be welcomed. Of course, the property or this parcel to be dedicated to the districts does have its environmental constraints, but there is a history of agricultural use here. Maybe there's a future as well. I just thought I'd put that forward. This is not a unique land type in our valley, and these types of things may come up again. Otherwise, speaking in favor of the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I too will be supporting the motion on the floor. I think that this is a good proposal that came forward in an area that we know is good for densification, close to many amenities, and to some of our core transit network. And I think that it falls in line. So it's a change in zoning, but it's still the same land use designation in the OCP in terms of residential neighborhood. And it falls right in line with our RM2 zone. There are no variances requested within the existing zoning envelope that's being requested. I think the community amenity contribution is in line with our existing policy, which is great, which makes this a fairly easy application to review and to support. I think some of the considerations that I still have are things that are best dealt with at DP, in particular traffic management in and out of that corner directly in the school zone, I think is one of the biggest concerns for this particular parcel. And just make sure how we ensure that there's safe access for pedestrians, bikes, as well as cars that need to egress and go into this particular property. But also happy to hear that staff have connected with folks at the Squamish Nation and will hopefully bring forward some of the opportunities that may be presented with the dedication of the 1.5 acres or hectares on the west side of the tracks. So with that, I will support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'm speaking in favor of the motion. I think this is an excellent use of this area. I've had the pleasure of living nearby at the Viking Ridge complex in the past, and this is an area that is central to services, and I think makes a lot of sense for a development such as this. I think I'm quite happy to see the parcel to the west of the tracks being dedicated to the district, and I'm curious to see what the best what happens with that going forward, given the constraints on the site, and leaving it as is makes a lot of sense. But perhaps there's something creative that can happen in the future there. So I'm quite happy with this. I do think that the traffic concerns will need to be addressed at DP, and I hope that and I trust that all the referrals to the nation will continue, and that this development, not just in its finished form but in its construction phase, will be a good neighbor to our friends at the Squamish Nation as well. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Yeah. Welcome back, Councillor French. We're on now to the consent agenda, and I'm going to start us off by pulling correspondence. So 7B1, which is the Lower Mainland Local Government Association letter. Is there anyone that would like to pull anything else before we consider the consent agenda? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Yes, I'd like to pull item number C, staff update for information 1, housing statutes memo, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just with that particular piece, Councillor Anderson, we'll look at it. We can have a quick comment on it or something. if we have to, if there's any more thing more in depth with it, my recommendation would be that it may need to be referred to a future committee of the whole. But for now, I just want to put that out there. We'll deal with that, the particulars of that when we get to that item after. Okay.
Very good, Mayor Herford. That's in alignment with my thinking as well.
Okay. Thank you. So with that, I'm looking for mover of the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we've already dealt with matter 9A1. So we're going down to item 12, correspondence action requested. So we're on to 12.1. Which is a correspondence regarding Fortis BC's effluent discharge permit application for our consideration. There's not a presentation with this. This is for our discussion. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up on my screen here while I'm talking, so give me a quick second. Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, I'll just start off. I think, I'd hope that we would provide some comment. We did ask for an extension to the public feedback, and I think we should take advantage of that. We've had a lot of correspondence from our community on this project. I think looking through, and we also got some updated correspondence from the biosphere. There's a recurring theme around missing cumulative analysis. And I think that's something that we have pointed out ourselves in the past. And another few things jumped out at me is the significant.
Councillor, can you put the microphone closer to your? I just think it
Sorry.
might not be. I want to make sure
Yeah.
we don't lose you on the recording. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't bring my glasses, so I'm looking at distance away at the screen here. I think the error, margin of error in some of Fortis's assessments on their, by orders of magnitude, the amount of effluent they project will go out. I guess they had some significant mathematical errors there. So they're under reporting what they will actually, their numbers don't line up by a significant amount. And for me, there's some other things about effluent handling system designs being missing. Someone who's worked on a number of these projects, one of the experts that provided some feedback, said this sort of design at this stage would be expected, and none of that's there, which is a concern for me. And then the whole issue of surge ponds and redundancy, a lack thereof. We know Fortis is expected to do their own treatment. So those are things that sort of jumped out at me. I think the cumulative assessments and lack thereof was the main one that stuck out to me.
Thank you. Other comments on this matter and perhaps a path forward? Councillor Greenlaw?
I might put forward a motion if that's of interest. And I'll speak to it if seconded.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, be it resolved that the mayor communicate with the BC Energy Regulator that the District of Squamish cannot support the Fortis BC's effluent permit request until the following are meaningfully addressed: the cumulative impact analysis and corresponding mitigations considering the multiple wood fiber LNG and Fortis BC effluent plans, and additional concerns raised by the Howe Sound Biosphere and the community, in particular scientists that have provided comments on the permit application. And resolve that the mayor share the district's feedback with the relevant parties as per prior district resolutions on wood fiber LNG / Fortis BC effluent permit applications.
Thank you. To the minute taker, did you get that, or do you have
I
it?
can send that to you.
Could you send it? Okay, is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Pettingill? Okay. Just I just want to make sure that we have it and we understand that it was lengthy, which is great and was what required here. I just want to make sure that we know exactly what it is. Or have you sent it over to the minute? and perhaps onto council so we can see it in front of us would be wonderful. Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor, would you like to speak to it?
Sure. I mean, I've had ongoing concerns about the entire process of these permits and the approval of these permits, and it is deeply disturbing to me that there is not room for a conversation rooted in science about the impacts of these projects. To Councillor Pettengill's point, the underestimate that they gave for their effluents, they estimated 150 cubic meters per day over a 10-hour period would be, that's what the analysis that they presented showed was 150 cubic meters per day for over a 10-hour period. But it's actually what they're going to do is over 500 cubic meters per day over a 24-hour period. And that is a misrepresentation of what they're going to be doing and leads to a poor assessment of the impact. So there is just consistent inconsistencies in their applications. And I feel that we need to take any steps that we can to hold these people accountable, to ensure that these are safe projects that are being approved and that they will not impact our fishery, our fish stock, the livelihood of our rivers and ocean. It's terrible.
Thank you. Question to the mover. The second bullet point, additional concerns raised by the Clepsome House Sound Biosphere and the community, and in particular scientists that have provided comments on the permit application. I'm wondering if we should be, it feels quite open, and I wondered if your thoughts on maybe more focused with that particular piece, whether it refers to a document, just as I think about actioning this, both from a perspective of writing a letter, but also if we're asking specifics of the regulator, if perhaps it's attaching a report. I don't quite have I just see that as challenging for this motion, not for your intent. I'll go around for other comments, but that's just something that I'm thinking about with this, and I'll see if I can come up with a perhaps an amendment. But I'll go down the speakers list. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, and thanks to my council colleague for bringing forward a draft motion. I too have some challenges with the second bullet point just because it's fairly broad. So I'd like to propose an amendment that the second bullet point gets struck and we add the following two bullet points: clarity on the discharge effluent volumes. And the third bullet point would read clarification on monitoring plans, particularly with respect to cumulative impacts and how sound. If that's seconded, I'll speak to it.
Seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think one of the challenges here is trying to find the balance of going through the information that we've received from some parties. I also had the opportunity to go through the actual application and the details that were presented by the proponents' scientists in terms of their monitoring plans, which were really, really bare. And so for me, those were the three elements that continue to jump out for me in terms of this application as not being fulsome enough to feel confident with the way forward, and things that I would like clarity on before an effluent permit were to be approved by the BC Energy Regulator. I will say that I have limited confidence that those things will go forward, given the fact that they already have a a temporary license, but I do think that they're things that we should be asking for, and our community has requested clarification on. So I'm happy to support that.
Thank you. On any other comments on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor French, Councillor Anderson opposed. Motion carries. So now we're on to the main motion as amended. It would, have you said that was part of that? Any other comments on this, Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, and I guess, the one thing I liked about the original version was, and that I'm struggling with now at this point, while I do actually appreciate the extra specificity on which things we have concern about. For me, there are additional things that really jumped out at me, which I would like to highlight. And the one benefit of just sort of favoring science and biosphere feedback in general is sort of, arguably captures a balance. I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's to me to pose a resolution. For me, one of the big things though that really sticks out that's still missing is the lack of real planning or approving these without a much better understanding of how they're actually going to handle the processing, the redundancy, the level of surge. We've seen extreme weather, extreme flooding, and it is very concerning to me to hear from people who work in the sector, who work in mining and so on, to say there isn't sufficient planning here and we need a way to handle sort of flooding and unforeseen levels of it. Totally foreseeable that we will see these unexpected conditions, and the fact that planning is not there in particular is a real concern. And I feel that that's high enough level that I can sort of draw a reasonable level of agreement there. I don't need to know the specifics of the science to know that that's offside. And so that's a piece that I would hope we could capture. But I'll maybe just leave that float out there for a second to see if that resonates for anyone else.
Was that your hand? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Henderson.
Yes, if it's my timing is right, Mayor Herford, I'd like to, I will not be supporting the motion, and I'd like to just explain a few comments why that is. I do support that there are questions to be asked of the project proponents, Woodfibre LNG and Fortis, and for the regulatory agencies. But however, I'm confident that they're hearing these questions, and I do hope that they will be pressed and that there'll be response to them. However, I think what is missing in the papers that have been presented to us and from local advocacy interests is missing context. I'll pull out a couple of examples. I do appreciate the highlighting of the municipal wastewater treatment plant. And we have had some unfortunate experience with our wastewater treatment system over the past year. Not noted in the report, but we did have some mishaps, unfortunate, and did involve some additional effluent into the Lower Squamish River. We have other areas of the community where there are hydrocarbons issues, notably the oceanfront, and it's probably far more serious on the northerly part of the oceanfront peninsula than it is on the BC Rail site. It has not been completely remediated. That's work to be done by the property owners, formerly the district. There is other mention of stormwater runoff and its implications, and I appreciate that. The consultant has done a thorough job as per instruction. However, the terms of reference for the consultant's work are limited. And so I'd like to just register my concern that we do consider this broader context. In addition, there's reference to vessel movements at Woodfibre. There will never again be vessel movements at Woodfibre as there have in the past. I used to work there. I worked in the marine sector in Northern Howe Sound. There could be as many as 20 vessel movements in a day at wood fiber pulp mill. We will never see that again. Underwater noise pollution, well, the district itself will be undertaking projects that will involve underwater noise. And are we prepared to be scrutinized? And let's be prepared. So that's also part of the context. We have our own wastewater treatment plant. We're going to be doing our own projects on the waterfront with our diking program that are going to involve us doing pile driving with marine mammals in proximity. In the bigger picture, I think we should also consider, I know it's not the job of the consultants, it's not the job of My Sea to Sky, but there has been somewhere in the neighborhood of between $14 and $20 million invested in environmental remediation on the wood fiber site over the past 10 years. And I think that that's noteworthy. It is also noted in the report that remediation has taken place at the Britannia mine site. However, that remediation was entirely taxpayer funded. Wood Fiber LNG has paid the full shot for the remediation undertaken at its site. And I won't elaborate further on the kinds of remediatory activities there, but they do involve the landfill, creosote pilings, etc., and it is ongoing. So I think that's, for me, part of the bigger picture to consider. But I do think it's important that we note that there are questions asked. Some of them are quite good. And I'm confident, however, that the proponents and the agencies, regulatory agencies involved, are hearing them. And I hope they'll respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments at this time? Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, I'll test amendments, and I'll just add one more bullet, which is, if supported, detailed effluent processing plans and redundancy.
Sorry, one more time with the last bullet.
Detailed effluent processing plans and redundancy.
Yep, go ahead. Want a clarification?
What does that mean?
That sort of in response to what I saw in the analysis, which is that there is not provide as part of the permit application a standard or normal level or even a basic level of how they actually plan to be able to achieve the level of processing as required, and that they have the redundancy to deal with any sort of failure or mitigation, because if anything goes wrong, if there's a flood, we're just kind of, there's apparently no plan there, and we're kind of hooped. From what I understand, Fortis is planning to be able to continuously drill. And so to me, it seems that corresponding plans to be able to process continuously in any sort of eventuality, flooding or whatever, a machine failure should be part of the permit.
So, sorry, we've had an amendment, and was it moved by Councillor Pettingill? Did I see a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Councillor Pettingill, would you like to make any additional comments? That was an answer to the clarity piece. Anyone want to speak to this amendment? Okay. I'm struggling with this one as we get more and more specific with this, as we don't have the it's some of this work I agree should happen. I have a hard time requesting it as this body when we don't have the expertise to review it or to understand what that threshold's been met. When I'm thinking about just as as presented, I wonder, I'm going to mull on that. I think as we add more bullet points, it gets more and more challenging to sort of really articulate the desired outcome in a cohesive way. Pettingill?
Yeah, just in response to that, I would say, again, when I read this, the issues of redundancy and so on were clear enough and high level enough that I didn't find I needed a PhD to see the importance of that. And I would suggest that if the plans were sufficiently detailed, that would answer the question itself. And the fact that there aren't any plans there leaves it open to question and sort of suggest that piece is a key piece that is missing. I think it's, I would say, somewhat self-evident that you should have redundancy in a system that needs to be continuous. And so there are a number of things that I would love to specifically have addressed in here. I tried to really restrict myself to the really top key high-level ones. And personally, I feel this is out of, the one thing that we may want to specifically address if we're not going to list all of them or, just fully endorse the scientist letters that we received. This is one that I think does raise to that level of worth to include. Again, I think if it was clear that this was unnecessary, those plans would say that that information would be there clearly in the permit, and it's not. And so I think it's reasonable to ask that. We're just asking that these issues be meaningfully addressed. And so I think that's reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this amendment to our amended motion, just to keep track of all this? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor French and Anderson opposed. Motion carries. Now we're back to our main motion as twice amended. And I don't think that this has changed foundationally what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to move to calling the question on the motion as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor French and Anderson oppose. Motion carries. Thank you. We're on to item 12.2, which is Capilano University letter request for letter of support for CAPU's IRCC proposal for council consideration. Oh, yes.
Thank you. I'll declare a conflict of interest as an employee of Capilano University.
Thank you. Okay, council, we've got a request before us. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to propose that the mayor write a letter of support for CAPU's IRCC proposal.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor French. Any comments on this one?
Just really briefly, I wanted to thank Andrea for reaching out and for staff for getting this on the late amended agenda, but I do think this is a really critical program that provides such valuable service to newcomers throughout the Sea to Sky corridor, especially here in Squamish. And it would be really, really beneficial, I know, to all of our communities to have them retained and funded for the next 5 years. So happy to support the letter as presented.
Thank you. Any other comments? I think this unto itself is important, but it's also I'm really happy to see start to feel the effects in our community of CAPU, and these are the types of initiatives that having a soon to be thriving post-secondary education institution in our community will continue to advance. So I'm happy to support this and look forward to more good work together with the folks at Capilano University. That'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll wait for Councillor Hamilton to rejoin us before we move on. Okay, we had correspondence referred from the consent agenda, which was, that was me on the Lower Mainland Local Government Association resolution notice. I just wanted to speak to this briefly. We're going to spend some more time on this next week, but this is that a few days more of a heads up that this will be coming to us next week. So I know that some of you and some of us think about these things that we could bring forward on resolution throughout the year, but we'll be looking to start honing in on that next week. So in advance of that agenda hitting your inbox. Just yeah, start advancing your or refining your resolutions in advance of that. And we had, I think we collectively had a lot of success last year through LMLGA and on to UBCM with resolutions that came from this room. So I hope we can have similar success this year. So that's it. So I'll move. Oh yeah, go ahead.
And will we get, because I know we usually flag things as, oh, we should bring that to UBCM throughout the year or LMLGA. Will that list come to us as part of our agenda? Just as a refresher.
Excellent question. I'll work with staff to ensure that we get the most current information that we can with that. Any other questions on this? I'll move receipt then. If there's a second by Councillor French, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then I suppose this is where the seems to be the best place to deal with the memo that was pulled. So, Councillor Anderson, keep in mind my previous recommendation.
Certainly, Mayor Herford. What I intend to do is to raise a question that perhaps staff might consider, and it's a matter of how to interpret Bill 46 provisions for Squamish in a particular area, and that is amenity cost charges and a new tool proposed by the province. And I'll just cite from the definitions for amenity, first of all, in the legislation. Amenity means a facility or feature that provides social, cultural, heritage, recreational, or environmental benefits to a community, including, without limitation, a community youth or senior center, a recreation or athletic facility, a library, and there are a couple of others as well, including daycare. The question I have is that elsewhere in the province's discussion and introduction of this legislation, there is an emphasis on neighborhood planning and neighborhood context. So that's what we might interpret. For example, in the province's press release, local governments will need to identify areas where more housing supply is planned in connection with utilizing this new tool. What amenities are needed to support that supply? And the AACs, the amenity contribution and amenity cost charges, would apply to new development in those areas. So my question is, what about community-wide, the community-wide context for various amenities? How might we be able to take these into account? Are we going to be restricted, or how can we stick handle, for example, a library? We're not going to put a library in every neighborhood. We're not going to put a library in connection with every new housing development. So my question is the community-wide context for our need for facilities, and we have a number of needs, and they are recreational, community center, and so on. So how might we interpret, and are we going to be in alignment with the legislation and the province's intention? Because we do not at this time have a planning process for identifying those community-wide needs. It has been proposed, a Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. The Arts and Cultural Heritage Strategy proposes in the future, or for the future, a planning exercise for community-wide cultural facility needs, but we haven't got one yet. So that's where it's going to come up. But in the meantime, as we get rolling and implementing this, presumably in the near future, I feel that there is this interpretive question of community-wide versus neighborhood or subdivision, sub-area plan context for applying this and identifying amenity needs. I'll leave it at that. I see our Director of Planning is here, and I just wanted to note that question I have with respect to how we might apply and interpret this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. There's so many questions with nearly every piece of this that this memo is the high level sort of to-do list with some timelines, but perhaps just as we're considering what we should do with this memo, I'm going to put the question to staff. Various pieces of this, what sort of touch points do you think council will have as you go through and do this work? And has that started to sort of crystallize in your work plans?
Thank you for the question. My name is Jonas Onishkis, Director of Community Development. So staff are actively working on compiling all this information and adapting our work plans for this year and for next year, because the changes are going to come into the next 2 years. So some changes happening this year, some changes we have to do next year with all of these recent housing legislation changes. And also layering in the potential for the CMHC grant if we're successful. So it's kind of, it's all related, essentially. It's all around housing. But we are planning to have a touch point with council very soon in a committee meeting. I can't give you the date yet, but we're certainly going to be coming to council before we press go on all of these on our work plan. Essentially, we're going to have to adapt our work plan for the next 3 years to where we were expecting to be working on.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Just related to this, I was going to bring it up in the council announcements, but UBCM is currently working on pulling together in the short term another housing summit similar to what they did last year in response to some of the legislation that we've seen come forward in the province. It will likely be held mid-February, so a really short turnaround, but in part to help connect municipalities, local governments to better understand the implications of the legislation, how different municipalities and local governments are managing, and what their plans are. And so that the dates are still to be confirmed, but just to give folks a little bit of a heads up, it's going to be a quick turnaround. Probably within the next month here, UBCM will pull something together that will hopefully help inform. I know staff are already working across jurisdictions, and the province has been holding some webinars, but I think this is very much still in the works. So just trying to give folks another update.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, and just one small observation, and maybe it's sort of assumed and that will be taking care of this, but when I look through the memo, it's very much focused on the planning changes and process changes we'll have to make, but it doesn't articulate how the heck do we get our public to understand what all this means and where we do and don't have discretion. And so I think there's also going to need to be a giant communications piece that we're going to have to wrap our heads around and engagement around of all this. And I don't know how we do that, but that's probably going to need to be part of our discussions too, it seems.
Okay. So I know that there's a lot of interest in this, both in this room and in the community, and our staff have outlined sort of the to-do list, but we'll be back. So when appropriate for the touch points and where there is decisions or discretion for us to and the community to weigh in on. So I'm curious to see where that what comes out of that and where those decision points are. I will go ahead and speculate that next year's LMLGA and UBCM resolution sessions might be about refining many of these new regulations that come out as far as the sort of some process perspective. But on this particular document, I'm going to move receipt for this, knowing that there's not just a in-depth conversation to come, but many in-depth conversations to come on its content. So I don't think that we need to take any different action with this item. Are you seconding or question? Yep.
I think I know the answer to this. But in Bill 44, it speaks to frequent bus service. Do we have an understanding of what frequent means? And the core of that is, does Squamish have or will Squamish soon have frequent bus service according to Bill 44? It just helps me frame what matters and what doesn't when I read this material.
Through the mayor, that's a great question. We currently do not have that, but we're working towards it. And it's kind of in our short-term plans.
Just for some, I can't resist an opportunity for some commentary on this one. I think that it depends on the provincial support of our transit future plans. So they're connected. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. So I moved receipt. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Stoner. More to come with this very important work, and we've just heard from our staff. This is going to really be something that is front and center for the next 3-4 years and beyond, as it likely gets refined. So we'll have lots of future touch points. That I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So we had no minutes referred, no business arising from minutes, no committee minutes and reports. Any notice of motion? Seeing none, we'll move on. We do have a council staff in-camera announcement around the GFL contract on the agenda for those interested. And then item 19, we had no unscheduled public attendance. We're now on to open question period. Is there anyone in the gallery that has a question of clarification about anything that they've on the agenda today? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. Council or staff announcements. Anybody? Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I have a couple things. In our last meeting last week, I won the circular economy contest for council. I gotta mention that again. And I'm sorry to say I gave a terrible acceptance speech. And I was just so excited. But I wanted to give a shout out to our amazing staff. And in this case, I'm referring to the wonderful Ms. Shannon White and Ms. Laura Wittenzeller for working so hard to get the word out about the importance of rethinking how we use our resources. And one of the reasons why I get so excited about circular economics is that as a species, we consume way too much and we produce way too much waste. And we need to learn how to get by with less because our planet simply cannot sustain this existence. So circular economics asks us to consider taking less and to look at our things in a new light and use some creativity to bring new life to them. Circular economics asks us to change our mindset when it comes to consumerism, to slow down and seek value in something that may have otherwise be thrown in a landfill. It's fun, it's economical, it's creative, and it's important. So thank you to our lovely staff for keeping this conversation going. Thank you to Councillor Stoner, who suggested this contest as one of her seemingly endless good ideas. And thanks for all of the refillable local business support and goodies that I won as prizes. And then I have another update. I attended the Ocean Watch Action Committee meeting last week, and there was a lot of discussion about concerns around marine debris cleanup resources and also just concerns around the quantity of marine debris we're seeing. And also some communication about an upcoming information night for the wood fiber and Fortis projects at Totem Hall, and some strong encouragement that people present at this meeting push the proponents to answer some of the outstanding concerns that many members, specifically scientists in our community, have voiced about these projects. Some of the outlying concerns that we have thus far had difficulty getting answers to, like, for instance, the cumulative impacts of waste disposal permits that are currently under review or have recently undergone approval. And thirdly, as people around this table know, we do not have a standing office space that we can use to invite the public in for conversations and engagement. And as such, I have begun having weekly gatherings at Sweet Threads on Thursdays from 12 to 2. So if there are members in the community who have issues they'd like to discuss, or they want FaceTime with a counselor, or people who just want to meet up in an inclusive makerspace to discuss social and community issues, you can find me there every Thursday from 12 to 2. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other, anyone else with an update? Councillor Anderson.
Council was hosted by our facilities and construction planning team and the Squamish Fire Department for a tour of the new Tantalus Road Fire Hall number 2 facility under construction. I very much welcome the opportunity. We have in our facilities, district facilities planning, we're in a new generation of competency in approaching these facilities and their construction, their budgets, and all of their puzzles, and the standards that we are setting for the broader construction industry in these facilities. And so it's great to have that these presentations over the last few years in this new standard of operation that we have and talent we have working for us, to complement that with a site visit while the facility is still under construction. I hope that we'll be invited back again for an opening day, perhaps, where we can see and learn more based on what we saw and learned during our visit. Was it last week? At any rate, there was snow on the ground, and we all had steel-toed boots, and but we were very well received, and all of our questions very well looked after. Thank you very much for those who hosted us on that day.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. That was a great opportunity to see the construction of what's going to be a beautiful new building and part of our public safety infrastructure. Is really exciting to see that advancing. Seeing no other hands, I'll go into my update on the, I think it was the 10th. We had a youth council meeting for January. This group's been advancing work with a project called Cubs Den, which has sort of smaller projects. If the community or people in the room remember Bears Den last year, it was pushing towards one big project, and this year there was also a commitment to take on Bears Den, so you'll hear more about that going forward. But they ran a smaller event called Cubs Den for smaller projects that the youth are leading, so work continues on those, and I'm quite excited to see these really leaders of the future taking on projects to positively impact the community. So that was really exciting, and more to come from that. We also have a so that's coming. You'll hear some more on the Bears Den piece, and it'd be great if you could help spread the word when it's time for that, as well as attend the evening. It was great last year. It's only going to be better this year. Council, there's a upcoming event called the coldest night of the year, and it's an event to support helping hands there, and it's you'll hear more about it, but it's an evening walk through the community, and I will pass along the formal when it's crystallized the whole piece, but I'd like to see us, as many of us as possible, participate. It's a team event, so we have opportunity to put together a team that is council. Although I think that individually, I think we can put together our own teams and really show the support for this initiative. So we'll hear some more about this in the next week or so. But I'd like to see us show up for sort of en masse for that initiative. So as that advances, you'll hear some more about it. Over the weekend, I had the pleasure of meeting with the Sikh caucus of the Federal Liberal Party. We're here in Squamish at the Gurdwara. There was 12 members of the Sikh caucus, and including and as well as Patrick Weiler and myself. It was great to spend some time both with our local Sikh community and with our Sikh MPs. And it's not often that we have an MP in our community, although Patrick is around often. But to have an outside MP here is a big deal. But to have 12 of them all at the same time was really a great opportunity. And yep. And it was, I love showing, as I'm sure all of you in the room and everyone in the community loves showing off Squamish, but just to see some people standing there saying things like, I've never been here before, and just watching it sort of wash over them and the beauty of of the place that we call home. So that was great. And I'll also, often at these, I seem to be talking about things that happened, and I'm going to talk about something that's going to happen. So tomorrow, I'm trying something different with the mayor's drop-in, which happens monthly, and it started with a conversation with Patrick Weiler around whether he would attend one just to as a special guest, and it's turned into a discussion about housing with the community. So it's tomorrow from 3 till 5, if I have my timing right, at the House Sound Brew Pub. We will have MP Weiler will be there. Myself, Mr. Vilniskis from our planning department, I believe will be attending. We have folks from the Housing Society coming as well. I have a tentative from, there's a complicated day for our MLA, but he's going to try to be there as well. So it'll be a great opportunity to talk about what's happening and all these changes that we touched on earlier, as well as the community's challenges and opportunities for us to positively impact that the housing situation in Squamish. So I'm looking forward to that, and invite if anyone from council wants to attend, please do. And going forward, maybe not at every mayor's drop-in, but I think this sort of having a special guest to help focus the conversation is something that we'll be looking at going forward. So stay tuned to some changes in mayor's drop-in. But if you can make it, that would be great. It's also supposed to be a snowstorm, so be safe as you go about doing everything, including getting to the mayor's drop-in tomorrow. And I think that's it for my update this time around. So now I'll be looking for a motion to terminate. Goes to Councillor Pettingill, thank you. And seconded by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.